Effective project management has three components, and the first two are the subject of many articles, training courses, books, and videos. The first is systems, processes, and methodologies, and the second is tools, skills, and methods. The third component is the attitudes that we bring to our professional work. Number 1, control. Projects exist on the edge of chaos. There are all sorts of things going on in an uncertain and rapidly changing environment. And therefore, one of the first priorities of a great project manager is to restore a feeling of control to that chaotic environment. Indeed, the thing that a good project manager craves above all else is control. And that's why we have so many different tools, techniques, methods, processes, and systems, all of which are about restoring control in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and sometimes highly chaotic project environment. Number 2, scoping. Scoping is the hardest part of project management. It's all about negotiating among a range of stakeholders, all of whom have different needs, different desires, different wants, and different priorities. And if that's not hard enough, we have also got to overlay on top of that negotiation the limitations, the very real limitations that we have for budget, for time availability, and for the availability of resources. To make all of this work, a great project manager needs an attitude of openness to facilitating, to listening, to synthesizing, and to negotiating among stakeholders, to recognize that theirs is not the most important opinion, it is the least important opinion. Your job is not to decide what is right, but to help your stakeholders to make that decision and for you to reflect it in a clear manner. Number 3, project success. It really does not matter how well you plan and deliver your project. It doesn't matter how good the products of your project are, how closely they match the specification, and how high their quality is. Because what really matters is how your stakeholders receive those products. If your stakeholders like what you deliver, then your project is a success. If they don't like them, then they won't use them, and your project will fail. The reason, of course, is it's because your stakeholders are the ones who turn your products into the outcomes that deliver value. Whilst it may suit you to evaluate your performance on easy measures like quality and specification, a great project manager is one who puts their stakeholders first and recognizes that it's their stakeholders' evaluation of what you deliver that really matters. Talking of whom, number 4, stakeholders. As soon as you manage to please some of your stakeholders, you will find that there are other stakeholders with contradictory expectations and aspirations whom you will disappoint. To paraphrase a famous quotation, you need to accept that you can please all of your stakeholders some of the time, and some of your stakeholders all of the time, but you will not be able to please all of your stakeholders all of the time. Whether we credit the origin of this quotation to Lydgate, to Barnum, or to Lincoln, the truth is that it holds an important insight for all project managers. Number 5, planning. Failing to plan is the same as planning to fail, is most often attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Whether he said it or not, most great project managers also believe that planning is at the very heart of our project management success. But what about agility and the need to adapt? There's another quote that I find myself using more often. In preparing for battle, I have often found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. This quotation is attributed to President Dwight D. Eisenhower, formerly a senior general in the US Army during the Second World War. We don't plan because we believe that our plans will come true. No seasoned project manager would be so naive as to believe that. No, we plan because of the value of the planning process. Planning helps us to understand what we need to do, and it will sharpen our senses so that we become more alert to the things that will signal trouble, problems and issues ahead that we need to either avoid or resolve. A plan is something that will vary in the light of change, not something that we rigidly stick to, regardless of what happens. This brings me to number 6, commander's intent. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. My final planning quotation comes from the Prussian general Helmuth von Moltke. It suggests that as soon as you start work on your plan, the universe will intervene and frustrate it. The real world is not as you're going to expect it, and so your plan becomes out of date as soon as you start work. Von Moltke had a concept that Admiral Lord Nelson also shared, and which he called commander's intent. In the run-up to a battle, Nelson would spend time with all of his senior officers, making sure that they understood what he wanted to achieve and the broad outline of his plan for how to do it. That way, in the fog of war, when events went as they would rather than as the plan suggested they should, each officer knew what was expected of them and could improvise effectively, knowing what it was that they were trying to achieve. As project managers, we have the definition of our projects. We have an understanding of our stakeholders, and we have a governance framework within which we need to operate. But within all of that, we need to be able to improvise and innovate to deal with whatever reality throws at us. And by sharing our definition of what needs to be done and making sure that our team leaders and team members all understand the parameters within which they must work, we can give them the authority to innovate and to improvise themselves. That way, when problems arise, when issues emerge, our team can overcome them, solve the problems, and get the project done. Number 7, fizzing bombs. Project management would be easy if it weren't for the people. Throughout a project, all sorts of issues will crop up, and many of them are related to the people on the project. And it can be very tempting as a project manager to see those as a big distraction from getting done what we need to get done. So it's also easy to shove those issues to one side and get on with our job. The problem is that those issues are rather like a fizzing bomb. Do you remember in the cartoon Tom and Jerry, every now and then, the mouse, Jerry, would hand a fizzing bomb to the cat, Tom, who would hand it back to Jerry, who would hand it back to Tom, who would hand it back to Jerry, who would hand it back to Tom, and Tom would look at it, and the fuse would burn down and it would explode in his face. The fact is that if at the very start of this, one of our characters had summoned up the courage to lick their fingers and to put out the fuse, the bomb would not have exploded. A lot of simple project issues are rather like that fizzing bomb. We want to pass them from one person to another, when in truth, if we summon up our courage and deal with them early, they are relatively easy to deal with. But if we leave them, they can explode in our face and become huge problems that we need to deal with, and can sometimes swamp the project. Number 8, being right. Being right feels good, but it's not your job to be right. Your job is to get the project done, to deliver the deliverables to specification, to schedule, and on budget. Being right is just a luxury that feels good along the way. Sometimes it is far more important to not be right, but to allow other people to be right. To give other people the credit for things you knew were true all along, so that they can feel the pleasure of being right and collaborate. And sometimes, when you feel you're right, discover you're wrong. Rather than revel in the pleasure of feeling you're right and trying to meld events to prove it, it's far better to swallow your pride and change your mind. That way, you can get things done. And all of that matters because you won't get your next big promotion or that next job because you were right. No, you'll get them because you did a good job of delivering a project. And that sometimes means accepting you're wrong. It sometimes means allowing someone else to be right instead. Number 9, adopt or adapt. Sir Isaac Newton claimed that he could see further because he stood on the shoulders of giants. And the same is true for us as project managers. If we stand on the shoulders of the project managers and the operational managers and the business thinkers and the accountants and the architects and the engineers who came before us, then we will see further too. If we accept that other professionals from our profession and from other professions have lots of ideas, lots of tools, lots of processes, lots of models, lots of equipment, lots of software that we can benefit from, then by learning about those, we can do a better job. And sometimes those ideas, those tools, those models are perfect for what we need. And sometimes they're not. If they're good for what you want to use them for, then adopt them. And if they're not quite right, then adapt them to your own purposes. Great project managers have a scavenger and a maker mindset. That is, we look for ideas wherever we can find them, and if they're not exactly what we need, we tinker with them to make something new, better, and more useful for getting the job done. Number 10, keep learning. If you want to find a stream of great new ideas, tools, methods, models, ideas, then you need that mindset to keep learning, to keep reading, to keep watching videos, to keep listening to podcasts, to keep talking to other project managers, to spend time with your mentors and your colleagues, to go to conferences, to hoover up, to scavenge new ideas, new thinking that you can adopt or adapt. You need an attitude of relentless curiosity for new information and for deeper understanding. In short, keep learning. Please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be making loads more great project management videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.